It is 2:30, Chairman.
Okay, everybody, welcome to this Corporate Scrutiny Committee of Sedgemoor District Council, coming live from the Albert Dock in Liverpool. I'm Brian Smedley, I'm the chairman of the committee, and I'm going to hand over now to Steve Taylor, committee manager.
Good afternoon. Hopefully those present will be able to see and hear the meeting. However, in the event of a technical failure, the chairman will adjourn the meeting and set a new time for its reinstatement. Please note that the meeting is being recorded and a copy of the recording will be available on the Council's committee web pages within the next few days. All members of the committee should have their camera on, but should remain muted until invited to speak. And the format of the meeting will be as per the agenda published. Back to you, Chairman.
Thank you. I'd like to ask each of the committee members to tell us whether they can hear and see everything at the meeting today. Councillor Barber.
I don't think she's here, Chairman.
No. Councillor Cordiner.
Again, no, Chairman.
Dyer. Councillor Filmer.
Yeah, I'm here, Brian. But yes, I can see and hear you.
Councillor Finneran. Saw you, Councillor Finneran.
Oh, yes. Sorry, sorry about that, Brian. My mute was a bit slow. Yes, I can see and hear. Thank you.
Okay, there's Councillor Grimes.
Yes, Brian, I can see and hear everything.
Councillor Pearce.
Yep, I can see. I'm here and I can see and hear everyone. Thanks.
And is there a Councillor Evans in the house? Nope. And that's the list. That's the tally for today. We have a series of officers present as well. Do we have any particular apologies for absence?
Yes, Chairman. Apologies from Councillor Rachel Lilly and Councillor Alistair Hendry. Okay.
Minutes of the previous meeting, 29th of November. Can we sign that or approve that to be signed when we're in reality as a correct record? I see, as you can see, several people nodding. So let's take Councillor Finneran, Councillor Grimes as proposed and seconding that. Everybody happy with that one then? Oh yes, I've got it nodding. Fine, that's sorted. Right, urgent business. I'm not aware of any urgent business.
No, Chairman.
The next item, maybe shutting these doors. No, public speaking is the next. There's no public speakers at all, is there?
No, Chairman.
No. And declarations of interest. There's none of those either, apart from the usual ones that have already been logged with Sedgemoor. So the first item today, we've got two main items today. The first one is business as usual, the resources and recruitment. This is to look at how Sedgemoor has been maintaining services during the transition to the unitary period. Various key lines of inquiry have been circulated, and we've got Teresa Harvey and a team here to do a presentation for you. I'd like to hand over to Teresa now, and then after that we'll take questions. Thank you.
I'll unmute myself. Thank you, Chairman. Okay, so I'm presenting on behalf of Doug Bamsey, who's on holiday, but could we have the next slide, Rose, please? Really, I want to give you a bit of an overview of what we do in our business as usual group, and then give you a couple of examples of a template that we've used and how we evaluate bids that come through. So this group was set up early this year, really, to try and monitor and manage our business as usual and make sure that we only took on stuff that we could actually do, and as a whole, as the corporate, that we had enough resources to be able to do that, or if we but also look at how we can manage those resources more effectively as these projects come through. We always knew that at some point we were going to have to say no to some, because with all the LGR work coming through, we knew that our resources and our staff were going to be really stretched. So it was time limited, and it was looking at things that we thought would get completed by vesting day, April 23. But also we identified projects that we would need to get to a certain point and stop working on at this point, and then hand them over to the new authority. And like you say, that was all in light of the work that we knew we were going to have to do with LG, with the local government review. But like it says on the slide, we wanted to be proactive and really manage business as usual, because we felt it was important for our staff and our well-being to know that we had, we did have their back, if you like, and that we weren't going to be expecting them to do more than we had the resources to do. So that was part of the reasoning behind it. Rose, could I have the next slide, please? So what we've done, like I said, we've maintained a real-time master list of all our existing projects and initiatives, and we have worked them on. So we've got ones that we know that are in progress, and all of these, the intention is that we will get them to a certain point at vesting day, just like I've said, and then and the ones that we have stopped altogether. If anyone wants to know more information about all the projects and the details of how we've managed that, then really it's Catherine who's in the meeting now that's holding all of that data behind. So she's been doing the program management for us, and so she's got masses of sort of spreadsheets behind all of this where we've tried to evaluate it as we've gone through, and we try to look at the performance and the metrics, and we make recommendations through. Generally our recommendations go straight to management team. Obviously at management team there is the opportunity for them to overrule any decision we've made, but that hasn't happened yet. And then we would take that on through, if there were any decisions that needed to go up to exec, it would go up through that route. I don't know whether you've been able to keep an eye, but Catherine puts all of this information and a lot of information on the intranet, which members should be able to go and view at any one time, and she's keeping that very much in real time, so it's pretty much up to date. And then we try and keep the staff informed as best we can through bits and pieces and all staff drop-ins, and our assistant directors across the piece are also keeping staff informed of how things are going through their team meetings. So we are meeting now on a weekly basis. We did reduce it down to a fortnight, but we feel the need to bring that through on a weekly basis. All minutes are minuted. And literally, as it says on that screen, I've already said all of that. So I think the next slide, Rose, is really as an example. So what we did, we've got two examples, one of a project that we took forward and one that we stopped. And I think what we did get quite a comprehensive sort of template sorted. So each project as it comes forward has to go through two gateways. So it has to first fit the strategic gateway, i.e. it is an objective of this council and it fits in the work that we're doing. And the project name and the sponsoring officer completes this template, and then we look at it and go through it and discuss it in detail. If it gets through gate one, i.e. it does meet one of the corporate priorities, and it does have a strategic sort of purpose as well, it will get through gate one. And to be honest, no project coming to us shouldn't get through gate one, otherwise you'd be questioning why people are thinking about it this time. But it's gate two that we are really sort of try and delve into, understand what the project's about, and then we spend as much time as anything really on looking at how those resources impact across the service and whether we can manage those. So you might be the sponsoring sort of service area, but most projects also need legal, finance, backup, the support service, the enabling services, and IT. So it is a matter of making sure that we've got those resources there. And the other thing that we're keeping is a sort of timeline of when those resources might come in, particularly around the legal side of that. So a project might start, but they might not actually need legal till October. So it's just, again, trying to keep a brief when those big bits of works are coming on. So this one that I'm showing you now was an example of one that Chris Trevelyan brought in, about hoarding. Now, I mean hoarding in homes, not hoarding as in on the side of the street or on the side of the road, trying to get rid of the hoards there. But this project fitted gate 1, and I also went gate 3 because it was a strategic project. It was quite, well, it helped maintain the growth and the speed through for the Somerset Independent Partnership. So it was very much dealt with there. So it had a core, getting this in place was very core to keeping SIP going. And then when we passed that over into the new authority, and also Chris was being able to manage an awful lot himself, although he did need support from Joe Hutchins in procurement and Steve's team on the legal side of things, just to make sure we were all sorted out from that side of it. That project is now pretty much underway, and it's about 80% complete, so it will be completed at the end of that. And then the other project, Rose, if you don't mind putting the next one up, was the former Highbridge one, and this is one that we stopped, and we stopped this quite early on. I think many of you will probably be aware that the sort of former Highbridge Boatyard and the redevelopment has been, and the negotiations with the landowner down there have been going on for a number of years now. And really there was no obvious way of getting this to any good point that we could either hand it over in that time without using up an awful lot of resources across the piece. So it was felt in the end, although it did fit great gate 1, it wasn't such a priority to take through to finish off on gate 2, because the resources it would have sucked up to be able to deliver on just a small part of it, and it was really reliant on meetings with the EA as well as with the landowners and other people, and it sucked in a lot of officer resource that we made a decision to stop it from Sedgemoor's point of view now, but it will be picked up later on in the new authority when we know where the levelling up bids are and all that bit of work that Stu Howlett's team's doing at the moment. So that's pretty much how we've worked. I can't see, Chairman, or Rose or Steve, is Helen here? Because she was going to do this next slide.
I'm here.
Oh, sorry, Helen. I don't know whether just to stop at that point to talk about business as usual and whether members had any questions about that side of it, or would you prefer us just to finish the presentation and come back for questions, Brian?
Can I suggest you finish the presentation, then we'll take questions at the end?
Okay. And just from my point of view, so from business as usual, we really do look at trying to use our resources as much as possible and be quite pragmatic. And, anecdotally, and I see stuff that we are sharing staff across the different groups quite a lot now as well. So where we can plug gaps and it works, we are doing that. But Helen's got some more sort of processes in place that are also linked with the LGR work that she'll talk through now. Sorry, Helen, I didn't see you.
Thanks, Teresa. I was hiding in the background. So just from an overall perspective, we're looking at this both from an SDC and an overall 5 councils point of view at the moment. Vacancies and resourcing remain a concern across all 5, particularly in some areas where there is a regional and national shortage of some types of officers. We are carefully monitoring those. So there are some things in place. The recruitment protocol is a relatively new protocol. It went in at the start of May. This is where across the 5 councils we're trying to work together to make sure that posts when we need to fill them are examined closely to make sure that's the case. So we do that internally and then advertise across the 5 councils for the internal advertising process to make sure that we are trying to keep resources where we need them in the right sorts of places. That protocol does include a process called mutual aid, which is where, as Teresa's exactly said there, where we're trying to share resources both across departments but also across councils, so that where there is a reduced need in some areas, we don't necessarily need to refill a post at a full-time capacity, for example. It may be that we can share some resources across and do it that way. So that's working relatively successfully in some areas. In other areas, there is just a need to replace the post on a like-for-like basis, and that's where we're trying to do it across the 5. Where we then need to advertise externally, if we can't fill it across the 5, there is again a lot more scrutiny on that, looking at whether or not we should be bringing additional posts in at this point, but bearing in mind the fact that, you know, business as usual still needs to happen in each of the 5 councils up to vesting day. The other thing we're really monitoring closely is leavers. At SDC, we have a much lesser problem with this than in some other councils. Sedgemoor, Mendip and Somerset West and Taunton are all holding relatively steady at about 2% a quarter. That's about where we would expect it to be. South Somerset is about double that, and County have got a higher percentage turnover, as has generally been the case. But we are monitoring that quite closely. From a Sedgemoor perspective, actually, of the 26 leavers we've had so far this year, just over half of those are people who have retired. So it's not people that we're losing to other the private sector or something because they're concerned about local government reorganisation. So, but we are continuing to monitor that closely, both from an internal perspective and across the 5. Where we're having trouble recruiting into some of those areas, we are using agency staff and fixed term contracts. That isn't only where we're having trouble recruiting into places. That is where we think that actually a post is unlikely to be needed in or across the 5 organisations. For example, we might have 10 administrative officers in planning departments. We may not need that many moving forward. So if we were then doing that and we lost somebody in that type of role, we would look at whether or not using agency staff or fixed term contracts might be more useful for where posts are likely to reduce moving forward. But as we've already said, we need the resource in the meantime. And then from a Sedgemoor perspective, we also have a backfill budget. So where we are releasing staff into the LGR programme to make sure that we're not having an impact or certainly reducing the impact as much as possible to allow those staff to be released. There is a backfill budget there to bring in additional staff on a temporary basis to allow those staff to be released into the programme. So we are aware of the issues around resourcing, both from a business as usual point of view and into the LGR. We're also aware around things like not putting too much pressure on staff to release them, so they're doing the LGR work as well as business as usual. So we are very aware of all of those sorts of things. We're not seeing a big impact in terms of increases in support for well-being and things. So actually we think we're managing it pretty well at the moment across all the various teams that are involved in that. But it remains a concern, and we are careful that we're continuing to monitor that and be very proactive with it in the meantime. But as with Teresa, happy to answer any questions on that.
Okay, thank you very much for that. Did you say Catherine was going to speak as well, Teresa?
I said not, Brian, unless there's a specific question that Catherine can answer, which I'll point her very, very quickly.
Okay, that's fine. So as everybody can tell, this is mainly office to office form of reportage with very little member direct involvement. So that's why it's a scrutiny now. So this is members' chance to ask any questions that they may wish. Does anybody have any questions they'd like to ask any of the officers in attendance today? I see one hand from Councillor Kathy Pearce. Kathy.
Thank you, Chairman. I just wondered, are there any particular areas where you're finding it difficult to recruit at the moment?
I'll pick that one up, Teresa, if that's okay.
Yeah.
So there are some areas planning officers remain a concern, as do building control. Across the 5, there is also an issue, obviously, with things like social workers, which I'm sure everybody's seen in the press. Those are areas where there is a regional and a national shortage as well. So we are monitoring that quite closely. We've had a programme in place for some time at SDC in both of those areas, where we've got a kind of a grow your own process in place, and that's mirrored across the others as well. But yeah, those are the main areas for us where there is a problem. We have some issues around temporary filling of posts, where we're trying to do it for fixed term contracts rather than permanent posts, in all professional areas really. Legal, HR, finance are all historically a bit of an issue in terms of trying to fill fixed term contracts for those, but so far we're not experiencing too much retention issue in those areas, so it's not as big of a concern, but certainly the other areas are. Again, at SDC, it's slightly less of an issue than in some of the other districts, but we are certainly quite aware of those areas.
Did you want to come back on that, Kathy Pierce?
Yeah, thank you, Helen. I realise it's difficult at the moment because it's sort of a time of transition, isn't it? But are you able to put a figure on the number of agency workers we have?
We're just collating that data at the moment for the finance work stream. We have had a look at fixed term contracts as well, and temporary staff. I haven't got the agency figure yet, we're just collating that at the moment, but in terms of fixed term contracts, we've got about 18, of which 8 are technically fixed term contracts because they're apprentices, but not really what we would call fixed term contracts. In comparison, if you look at somewhere like South Somerset, they currently have 30 secondments and 42 fixed term contracts. So our reliance on that sort of stuff is significantly lower than some other areas.
Okay.
I'm happy to forward the agency information as soon as I've collated it, though.
Yes, please. Thank you very much.
No worries.
Okay, Councillor Filmer.
To be honest, Chairman, the last question and answers covered most of what I was going to ask. All I was going to pick up on, if I could just though, is the list we had originally was projects that have been sort of shelved or carried on with. The sort of general, normal day-to-day running jobs that are running in the background, how are we fixed with those? And in terms of, we said we're sharing staff to help cover areas that we need to. What are we doing to actively make sure that those staff are coping? Because obviously the pressure is ratcheting up on everybody at the moment. So how are they enabled to feel that they can actually raise it without sort of putting their head above the parapet?
Shall I?
Go on, Teresa, you go
Sorry,
first, and then I'll pick up after you.
Yeah, the first, the projects, the ones we sent out to you, Bob, they're the ones that we're working on at the moment that you would have had all the papers on. I'm not sure whether I'm answering your question correctly here, but we are aware of the further work that's going to come forward through LGR and the pressure on staff. So we will be choosing in middle of July. We're going to review all the projects that we've got in there that we thought at the beginning we would complete, and just take a proper good look at that and decide whether we can or not, or whether we're just going to have to stop some of those. And there'll be a cut-off of report, new projects coming through, because there'll obviously be exemptions at certain times where stuff is so important, it's got to be done, but that's it. From an AD's point of view, and Helen will answer more from the well-being of the staff, I think we've been offered quite a lot of stuff, been offered quite a lot of training from a resilience point of view and understanding, and trying to give them the confidence to come forward if they are under a lot of pressure. And certainly the team, in our service managers are on the lookout and trying to encourage people to come have their voice. And it is difficult, I know, for some people, and there'll always be people that just don't come forward, and we've got to keep an eye on, which I think we do pretty well at Sedgemoor as a whole, but sort of working remotely is even more difficult to spot that. But I think we're aware of that, and I'm sure Helen will expand a little bit more on that. But I think generally it's Well, we were just talking about it at our assistant directors meeting, where we have an agenda item on that, just to sort of have a bit of a gauge where we are on what the feelings that and the stuff that we're hearing in the office. It's where we'll pick up some of those anxieties. And at the moment, it, you know, fingers crossed, it seems okay. But, you know, the big change is going to happen now onwards, isn't it, once the new chief exec has come in. So I think we're doing our best, but I'm not saying it is perfect. And the other thing that we've got coming through is our appraisals, which Helen will expand on, I'm sure, but we were talking about those, which is our opportunity to one-to-one with each member of staff. The idea is we'll take a much softer approach to the appraisal, so they won't be performance this time, but that we feel when we were talking about it might be a good place to sort of gauge individually and have those private talks with individuals and try and draw that voice out then. Helen, if I've stolen all your thunder, I apologise, but I'm sure you'll do much more eloquently than I can.
No, absolutely, and as Teresa says, we're not bad at this sort of stuff at Sedgemoor, to be fair. We're compared to some of the others, we do pretty well. The ADs are always encouraging their line managers to make sure that they are having the one-to-ones with staff. As we've been working remotely, the team meetings are much more critical, and those do happen. We do spot surveys on that fairly frequently to make sure that those sorts of things are happening, and that always comes back really positively. As Teresa says, we're now monitoring that into the ADs on a monthly basis. We monitor from my team's perspective all of the data on that. So really, how many staff are accessing the various wellbeing channels we've got. We speak to the mental health first aiders and look at the levels of staff who are accessing those sorts of facilities. The same with wellbeing ambassadors. We have a number of things in place, and at the moment that data is showing that we're not experiencing an issue in that area. As Teresa says, what we then do at assistant directors meeting is look at whether the anecdotal information matches the full stats for that. At the moment, while there is the activity analysis has provided a little bit of disquiet around that, as we had expected it would. Actually, the way Bob has presented that in his all-staff briefings and some of the other feedback that's gone through via the directors and assistant directors and managers seems to have settled that down quite a lot. So we're not seeing as much of an issue with that. And actually, the return rates for Sedgemoor staff for that are really high, comparatively speaking. Everyone seems to have understood the purpose of that and asked their questions, had them answered, and are feeling more comfortable about that. Bob continues to have his staff briefings on a 3-weekly basis. There is a number of staff who ask questions in those sorts of forums. So we are doing what we can to keep on top of those sorts of things. As Teresa says, the appraisals are about to start for this year relatively shortly. We didn't want to not do those this year because it was important to make sure that staff had the opportunity to be recognised for all of the stuff they've done over the last year, which is and the way that they've coped and the way that they've adapted is and churned out some really phenomenal work over the last year. Was really important to recognise and not just not do it because we might not do the next year's sort of targets and things, and then that being a means of checking in with staff welfare as well on that basis. But as Teresa says, it's going to be much lighter touch this year, so it's much more of a conversation around well-being than it is around task-based work, really. But we will continue to monitor that. If we start seeing that there is an issue or we see a spike in sickness rates or retention rates that are a cause for concern, we will jump on those if those are in individual services or if they are more of an indication across the board. And, you know, that's really kind of where we are with that at the moment, but we're not seeing as much of an issue for us as maybe in some of the other areas, so in some of the other councils, so which is really encouraging that we've got the right things in place at the moment.
Did you want to come back on that, Councillor Filmer?
No, I think it's very useful what we've heard. I think it's just so important that we get the message out to all the staff that if they've got concerns, they can raise them without it being held against them at some future point. Because obviously
Absolutely.
people will be nervous at the moment. Everyone knows everything's being reorganised, and you don't necessarily want to be rattling your cage at a time when someone else might be deciding whether you're continuing or not. So we just need to make sure that message is out there somehow. But thank you for what you said.
Okay, Councillor Pearce.
Thank you. In terms of the projects, page 17 of the committee papers, under scheduled to stop, Pendle Classic Buildings is the only one there is scheduled to stop. I know there are some others that are stopped, but my recollection was that some funding had been set aside for that project, and I just wondered, can you give us a bit more information
I
about?
I can give you a bit more information, Kathy, but I don't know the detail of it. But although the funding has been as one of the leaders' growth bids, there I think Stuart's team just don't have the resources to get that going at this moment. So that's one of the projects that probably won't get started for vesting day, but will be handed over to the new council as part. And I think it's because, again, I don't understand it all, but I think with all the town deal work and the levelling up fund, they haven't got the time to really invest in getting that project over the line before vesting day. It's not that it's not going to happen. It's just one of those realities of where we are with that. I reported on this morning at exec briefing, actually, all the growth bids and the community infrastructure projects that are going forward and all the ones that we're going to complete. So I think that was really the one. That's probably the only one that we just don't think we're going to get over the line for vesting day. But obviously it's not going to not happen, but it's going to have to be picked up once we've got the LGR and sorted out. It's sorted us out, or whatever, however you want to put it.
Did you want to come back on that, Councillor Pearce?
Well, only thank you for that, because that's really useful information. I think as board councillors, we'll continue discussions with officers to ensure that it's not lost in the ether on the changeover.
No, it's not. I don't think there's any intention of it being lost, but it's just the reality of what we can do. So I'm very happy outside of this meeting to go through all of the growth bids that came through and just tell you the progress of them all. I mean, that's an open to any members sat here. So
Thank you.
I can easily pull a meeting very quickly together if there's more than one of you that wants to know how we're getting on with them all.
Okay, are there any more questions from members? I don't see any more hands up. If not, are there any proposals that people would wish to make out of this? Otherwise, it's clearly just an item for note, and members are now better informed and seemingly happy with the progress of the business as usual. Okay, thank you very much then for your time today, all of you. And let's now move on to the next item, which is customer accessibility and inclusivity. It should feature Jerry Milton, who I can't tell whether he's with us or not, but is due to be. And this is to receive an overview of the inclusivity of access to customer services provided by the council via phone, website and in person. Do we have Jerry with us just now, Steve?
I'm here.
He's with us.
So can I hand over to you then?
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, members, for inviting us to come and talk to you today. I'm going to do a short introduction to Gareth Denslows, our Head of Customer Service, and Kevin Chorley, who's the Digital Engagement Manager. They'll be talking us through the presentation and through the key lines of inquiry, addressing the questions that you've set us, and probably touching on some of the work we've been doing under local government reorganisation as well, and sharing our experience with the other councils and perhaps give an indication of where we're going collectively by vesting day. But before I do that, I'll just give you an overview of where we were a couple of years ago prior to lockdown. and everything that came with that. When we first started consulting with our customers about what we wanted from customer service, because we did spend quite a lot of time with our fledgling customer panel at that time, talking to them, asking them what they expected from a customer service. And this is what we collectively came up with, which is our customer charter. So just give you a brief overview of this because it'll help, perhaps challenge us whether we've met these promises or not as the guys go through the presentation. So we said that we were going to be polite and professional, as you would expect, knowledgeable and willing to help our customers. Everybody knows that we've been through some sort of digital transformation, which is a long-standing commitment, which is ongoing. But it was about building digital solutions for our customers and working with organisations to offer support and skills and training to customers who need help to access digital services. So that's digital inclusion. We said that we were going to actively recruit and engage with a panel of customers. That's our customer panel. We will respect and value our customers. We will offer a positive experience with Sedgemoor District Council to all customers. And we were committed to offering an accredited customer service, and we will work to achieve the highest standards. So that was about getting recognition, a recognised standard, a nationally recognised standard, which would obviously be of value to our staff as well. So that's what we said. We spent a lot of time with our customers talking about that, and of course with our staff as well. And that was our commitment. So as Gareth and subsequently Kevin talked through our presentation, we can perhaps reflect on those promises. And I have to say, through all of this, we have had a lot of support as well from our portfolio holder, Councillor Dudridge, so regularly reporting to him on our progress. So without further ado, I'm going to hand over to Gareth now to talk us through some of our achievements.
Thank you, Jerry. Good afternoon, everybody. So as Jerry mentioned there in the initial PowerPoint slide, we committed to, within our customer strategy and within the standards we set, to work towards the highest standards of customer service by achieving a professionally and nationally recognised accreditation. So for that reason, last year we decided to go with the Customer Service Excellence Standards, which is a government recognised framework. The standard focuses on kind of 5 key areas you can see in front of you there. So customer insight, the culture of the organisation, information and access, delivery and timeliness, and the quality of service. It requires you to have a comprehensive insight into the customer, so understand the user's experience and have sound processes in place to measure customer satisfaction with the service. So most importantly for us, it's a driver for continuous change. So it's allowed us to have a framework with which we can develop the delivery of our services, embed customer service excellence by ensuring that the criteria is at the heart of our kind of day-to-day activity. So in October of last year, our customer services team, so incorporating Sedgemoor Digital, Lifeline, CCTV, digital engagement and process redesign, were audited against a large amount of criteria. It was a huge piece of work, and the outcome was actually across those kind of five high-level standards, we achieved a high degree of compliance, and indeed 11 compliance plus standards. So we've certainly demonstrated excellence across the board there. There is one key area within there around kind of partial compliance, which is relating to complaints. And I think in the information you've been given, there's a kind of a more detailed account of the outcomes from the CSE audit. But essentially, part of our LGR work is to relook at our complaints processes and ensure that we're getting regular feedback from complainants about how their complaint has been handled. So what it has really highlighted to us is we as an organisation have our customers, whether these are service users, businesses, our partners, at the heart of everything we do. And the importance, I guess, of those local insights into our service delivery. I'm also pleased to say that as part of our kind of ongoing LGR work, this excellence model is going to be carried forward into the new Somerset Council. So it really helps starting to shape that customer strategy, of which I'm leading on. And you know, really confident that the customer service excellence accreditation will be used by the new council moving forward. Now, what has been pivotal, I think, to gaining some of those customer insights and that information around accessibility is the ability to evaluate our approach, and our customer panel, which we've developed and Jerry alluded to at the beginning there, has really helped us develop and it's aided the development of our services. And it's served us really well. It's helped us understand the needs and preferences of our customers. It was introduced in 2019, and we wanted to move away from more kind of traditional approaches to customer engagement. We wanted to develop a more diverse, innovative, and representative panel about specific projects. So I think in total now we have 317 members who we engage with through kind of various means. I guess it's dependent on their particular needs, but online surveys, user testing, remote and group work. We've indeed had customers more so before COVID come into the Sedgemoor room as well, do some focus groups, and that engagement will continue as we obviously look to develop our new service and the new council. We've looked at various projects. So the redesign of the Bridgewater House reception area was a project which the panel were heavily involved with, and we had actually a schools competition where a local school, Northgate, designed the children's area and the reception area, which is really quite nice. And our panel have also helped us design some of our self-serve forms and web pages and tested them. So across the board, you know, the customer is really at the heart of our delivery, and we're co-producing our services with them. Again, as part of our LGR work, we're keen to replicate that model in the new customer strategy, and a project has started and is ongoing in regards to the development of a new Somerset Council customer panel moving forward, and we can take some of the kind of key learning points from our current customer panel into that new service. I mentioned reception, and we'll come to that in a moment, but before we do, and I appreciate this is quite a busy slide that you've got in front of you, but it's really just to highlight that throughout the customer access program, we've taken a digital by choice approach. So providing increased services online that can be accessed 24/7, promoting and encouraging use of this channel. However, we also ensure that the same services are available to customers that cannot or do not want to transact with us online. So key to this is that principle of leaving no customer behind. As part of CAP, we've developed a customer operating model, which is in front of you here, and it illustrates a kind of high level our aim for 80% of transactions to be completed online. So those are the kind of high volume, low complexity online services such as payments, requesting waste bins, reporting a missed waste collection, or indeed a change of address. And the aim behind that is to free up capacity for both the contact center and the back office to provide greater support to our most vulnerable customers who require much of our time and support. So ultimately, this is what we've been working towards and where we want to be in a kind of longer term transformation. And this is, again, the model that we are championing as part of the development of the new customer strategy for the new council. Moving on to reception, and it's been over 6 months now since we opened our redesigned reception. And it's, of course, not just a physical change. We've also redesigned how our service is delivered and how we serve our customers. So we've moved away from the kind of traditional approach of booking in and having permanent specialist service provision, move into greater use of self-serve kiosks with floor walkers, promoting channel shift with customers. So by that, I mean directing those customers to the kiosks and where required, supporting and promoting the use of those online forms. And I would say, I'm in there kind of most days, and anecdotally, it does appear that those coming into our reception are largely customers that are more vulnerable and need some form of mediated service, which really reflects what we were aiming for in terms of that operating model I just showed you. We're nowhere near kind of pre-COVID volumes in terms of our footfall in reception. But we certainly, I think, have the largest footfall in comparison with our other local authority neighbours. And what we've promised as a customer service team is for us to deal with as much as we can with customers there and then without the need to call on the back office. And this is working really well. I think at the last count, it was 92% of the inquiries that are coming through the doors are having their inquiry dealt with by a customer service advisor. And most importantly, those customer satisfaction levels with the new service provision has been really positive. Alongside that, we've incorporated new software in reception, sign-in app for visitors coming into the back office, which is something new, and Attend Anywhere, which I know Kevin's going to run through later, so I won't steal his thunder on that. In terms of the other customer access channels, Sedgemoor Digital, during 2021 and 22, the contact centre took just shy of 101,000 calls. So those high volumes kind of relate to council tax, waste services, housing, planning and benefits. And a vast majority of those are dealt with at the first point of contact. So it reduces the burden on the back office, and most importantly, ensures that customers receive an excellent one and done service wherever possible. However, our average abandonment rate is 8% for the course of last year, and that certainly doesn't meet our key performance indicator, which is for that target of under 5%. So we will be looking at solutions and are looking at solutions around reducing that abandon rate over the course of this year. As mentioned in the report that you received, we do proactively manage anticipated peaks in demand. So whether that's promotion of self-serve options through social media and website content, amendments to some of our welcome messages on our telephones as well to give essential information out. Most importantly, rota and resource management, so ensuring that we've got enough cover during peak periods and providing or increasing our resource at times when we anticipate there will be that higher demand. So the customer service team leaders have been working with customer service advisors to review individual performance, action planning where there are indications that performance can be improved, but also where we can amending some of our processes to ensure we streamline them and ensure our systems are as slick as they can be. So ultimately, given the increased demand on resources through LGO, we'll be going to management team to also request additional resources to assist in meeting this target going forward as well. In terms of self-serve, last year we had over 18,000 forms submitted online, and that's a really healthy increase of 53% on the previous year. We've introduced 26 new forms online during 21-22, working with our services and of course our customer panel to design and test those services. And that provides the ability for customers to report, request and apply for more services in a digital way, as well as ensuring that the same services are available for those traditional contact channels. So there have been a number of time limited forms such as the COVID-19 grant forms, which have been made available, as well as our kind of redesigned council tax, business rates and benefit forms as well. Now that increase in self-service through the website is a really positive step towards channel shift. However, we would normally expect to see those call volumes reduce within the contact centre. And what we've actually seen is an increase in phone calls into Sedgemoor Digital by about 4.5% in 21-22. So that means that telephone contact equates for nearly half of our contact from customers, and contact is continuing to increase overall. Now, the reasons for this are varied and could be attributed to COVID-19 schemes such as Recycle more recently as well. And the last kind of, I guess, major project that the customer access program is going to look at is consolidating the work that we've done, the hard work we put into increasing our online forms and introducing a channel shift project. And this is something that's been through the BAU group. And it's essentially to, as I say, consolidate what we've done. We've increasingly, sorry, the work of our business analysts has been there to support the customer digital LGR work streams, to develop the products that need to be delivered for vesting day. But the focus for us in terms of BAU is to encourage and reward our customers for an improved quality of digital service and achieve a changed target of 40% shift overall contact away from Sedgemoor Digital. So a focus will be on highest volume transactions. So we will explore with our customers the reasons why they are choosing to use telephone rather than self-serve, particularly when it comes to services such as waste, which are generally, as I mentioned earlier, very low in complexity. I can argue we add little value to the customer experience. And the project will allow us to give greater digital access, provide better customer choice and free up capacity within the front and back office. However, to support our vision to improve access to those digital services, it's really a job for everybody. So, I mean, I'd encourage yourselves, and indeed we've already done an all staff briefing where we've asked everybody to signpost customers more and more to the services that we provide online. Particularly those of the report or request type transactions. And customers can do that just by clicking that report and request button that's on the website. And I'd encourage you to have a look at the vast amount of self-service transactions we have, which in comparison with 4 or 5 years ago is a real step forward. So if you do have any comments or suggestions as to how we can improve access to these services, please do let us know. Now, further ado, I'm now going to hand over to Kevin, who's just going to start by talking about some of the improvements to our website.
Thanks, Gareth, and good afternoon, everybody. 5 more slides, that's all. So first off is our website, and this fits really, really nicely with the channel shift that Gareth has been talking about. We underwent some exploration exercises firmly with the idea initially to completely redesign our website, have a completely new framework, look and feel to enable that channel shift. And so we ensured we were having a website that was fit for purpose and that could cope with that channel shift and more footfall coming through from customers. Obviously LGR was thrust upon us, and that website project then just turned into more of a tidying up exercise. What can we do in the immediate short term to make our customers experience of our website much more improved? So we did some research, worked with our business analysts and looked at the top 10 areas on our website, and we targeted those with the most footfall. Places like our planning, Somerset Independence Plus, revenues, housing advice and homelessness, to name a few. And we looked at their pages and we essentially just tried to make them jargon free, tried to make them less wordy, tried to break up some of that heavy sort of text-based information, tried to make it much more easier, much more streamlined for our customers to use. Lots of hyperlinks, lots of clearer, more detailed, straightforward information. And we've worked really, really hard with the service departments and their respective pages over the last 6 to 8 months to try and achieve that. Now, when we talk about council terminology as well, we're talking about simple things like, rather than referring to, on the revenues pages, for instance, rather than referring to an abode, we're now just calling it a home or a house. Something that our customers are much more relatable to. In terms of accessibility as well, we are assessed on our website for reading age, and we are asked to present our information on our website as if a 9-year-old were reading our web pages. So at the moment our reading age is around sort of 13, 14 years of age. So we need to kind of bring that down and make some of that wording easier. Like I say, we've fixed links, we've added images, updated content. One particular service department's pages had 109 separate grammatical errors. So we've looked to address all of that as well. So our website is now much more fit for purpose, not just for the immediate interactions and that immediate channel shift focus that we've got, but also so it's ready to hand over for the new authority as well. And we can say, look, we've got a website that works, that is fit for purpose and is good to go and can just be copied over to the new website. Thank you, Rose. Next slide, please. Thank you. So Gareth also referred to Attend Anywhere, and you'll see there. Apologies for the grainy shot of the reception area, but that's just a quick snap of our kiosks in our reception. If you haven't seen them, please do come and have a look. They're an amazing piece of kit. But also what we've got on there is Attend Anywhere, and that has helped us tremendously during the pandemic to continue to interact with all of our customers. And a lot of our vulnerable customers as well, in a face-to-face capacity. Officers can still work from home. Attend Anywhere adds to that ability to work from home, facilitates it really, really well. And customers can still come in, access Attend Anywhere in this environment, in the reception, or in a confidential setting. We can get a laptop fired up and put Attend Anywhere on a laptop and sit a customer in a private meeting area, so they can still speak to officers of the council face to face. It works in this sort of setting, a sort of a team setting, or I'm sure many of you would have experienced a Zoom call. But it has a lot of the additional features like screen sharing. You have your mute buttons. It's used up and down the country by the NHS, predominantly by GPs who are wanting to carry out consultations on patients. Attend Anywhere has been used really, really well in that setting, and our partners, the Citizens Advice Bureau, are also starting to use it a lot for their appointments and their customer contacts as well. So this is something that we, Sedgemoor, want to really try and push. There's been tremendous take up amongst our housing advice and homelessness department at the moment for the vulnerable customers that they deal with. Again, it's facilitated that home working for our officers. There's a number of positive environmental impacts to it as well. For argument's sake, you've got a customer in Cheddar that doesn't need to necessarily then travel into our Bridgewater offices to speak to an officer of the council. They can potentially do this from the comfort of their own home. It's a simple URL link. There's no funny apps or downloadings or anything like that that's necessary to access this. And we're also offering it from our customer access points as well. We've got a couple of customer access points in Breen and Barrow, so it's possible that customers of the council can come to one of those points and access a council service or speak to an officer from one of those access points. And we're looking at data to try and increase those access points as well, and I'll talk about that in a second. But also we're finding that Attend Anywhere is increasing the opportunities for upskilling. So those council officers that were perhaps writing for an appointment, there is an increased uptake now in actually doing this appointment style, this face-to-face thing, much more digitally. And as I say, I've touched upon the potential efficiency savings there and the positive environmental impacts that this might bring. One final thing on Attend Anywhere is that there's tremendous traction for this as well in some of the LGR work streams. They're looking really, really in detail at the Attend Anywhere offering, and in particular our kiosks, with a view to rolling them out in the LCNs. So this is something that Sedgemoor can put a stamp on and say we did first, and we really, really hope that it's something that is carried forward into the new Somerset Council as well. Thank you, Rose. So as I was talking about customer access points, just a couple of data